Chapter 7. A thoroughly discombobulated expedition. Cal Asser strode into the bustling tavern known as the Frumious Weasel, a famously cacophonous establishment nestled in the incomprehensibly named village of Xermlickworth. Gzrimlookworth. Named village of Gzrimlookworth. Right, I think I might need to refer back to that, so let's add a village of Gzrimlookworth. The place name itself seemed expressly designed to torment passing cartographers, a jumble of consonants notorious for its resistance to any mortal tongue. Let's demonstrate this as a double check. Click this one to save where you are. Click the voice reference, play.
Going to sound like this.
And click the one on the right to go back where you were. Yes, for its resistance to any mortal tongue.
I still contend,
Cal muttered to no one in particular, adjusting his scholarly robes beneath which ruffles
I still contend,
Cal.
I still contend,
countered to no one in particular, adjusting his scholarly robes beneath which muscles rippled alarmingly.
And
Cal muttered to no. I thought that happened.
And
Cal muttered to no. There we are. Robes beneath which muscles rippled alarmingly.
That the village... I still contend...
Robes beneath which muscles rippled alarmingly.
That the village elders lost a bet.
Or 1-1, said Borgrim, a dwarf barely visible above.
Bet.
Or 1-1. Said Borgrim, a dwarf barely visible above the countertop, his beard plaited meticulously with shiny gemstones. Let me just show you what happened here. As a punch and roll, it did this. 1, said Borgrim, a dwarf. 1, said Borgrim, a dwarf barely visible. Might need a minor tweak, but barely perceptible. Plaited meticulously with shiny gemstones. Depends entirely on your perspective. Now, do you want ale, or do you prefer to stare pensively at nothing?
Ale, good dwarf,
Cal Asser replied, flourishing dramatically to take a seat.
And perhaps a measure of that renowned anthropological debate I requested.
Borgrim narrowed his eyes suspiciously. What's it? You mean gossip?
Precisely.
Why didn't you say so? Borgrim chuckled. Elvish ambassador over there, name's Aurendel, is in a fierce tiff with the goblin delegation about some missing jewel chalice.
Excellent,
Cal Asser said, eyes sparkling.
Just the sort of fracas I excel at.
As he turned to investigate, a thin elf dressed in impossibly delicate silks leapt from his chair and pointed accusingly at the group of goblins who looked slightly too comfortable, nestled in a booth. 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 Yeah. Oh, he's from Wales, isn't he? Recalcitrant brigands. Recalcitrant brigands. I'm from Wales. I'm talking about recalcitrant brigands. Recalcitrant brigands, Arundel shouted, his voice a perfect melody of outrage. The chalice of King Fenwerthelion? Of King Fenwerthelion? Worthelion? King Fenwerthelion? The chalice of King Fenwerthelion has disappeared, pilfered under circumstances most duplicitous. One goblin, identifiable by a purple feather protruding incongruously from his helmet, sighed loudly. I cannot remember this guy's voice. Borgrim is a Scottish dwarf. Oh, no, not Borgrim, goblin.
Always talking in this sort of throaty voice. Listen, you elongated artichoke.
Sighed loudly.
Listen, yeah, in going.
Oh,
Listen, you elongated artichoke.
he rasped irritably.
We ain't got no chalice. Why is it always us goblins?
Preposterous denial, Arundel sputtered. Your rapscallion nature is universally acknowledged.
I'll handle this,
Cal Asser interjected cheerfully, bounding to the table. He pulled out a parchment, dramatically flourishing a quill.
Now, precisely spell Fenwerthelion for accuracy.
Vampire, not necessarily. Not necessary, thundered a voice from the doorway. Every head turned as an enormous human warrior, garbed entirely in crimson armour of absurd ornateness, entered with deliberate pomposity. The chalice is mine. Zarok the Nefarious, Borgrim whispered theatrically to Cal Asser. A proper villain, that one.
Marvellous,
Cal exclaimed, scribbling furiously.
And your motive, Zarok?
Villainy, Zarok replied flatly.
Naturally,
Cal Asser said, scribbling again.
Succinct yet informative.
The goblin scrambled away, leaving behind only a trail of confused squeaks. Arundel regarded Zarok with exaggerated distaste. Did I mispronounce that? Exaggerated distaste. Distaste. Exaggerated distaste. Distaste. Exaggerated distaste. Your ignominious perfidy knows no bounds. Such perspicacious accusations wound me deeply, Zarok smirked. But alas, I have greater aspirations. Witness. He raised the chalice triumphantly. Cal Asser squinted curiously.
Isn't that merely a decorated tankard?
Zarok hesitated, scrutinizing the object. Perhaps, yet my nefariousness remains undiminished. I think I slurred that. Yet my nefariousness remains undiminished. Scrutinizing the object. Perhaps, yet my nefariousness remains undiminished. The crowd murmured confusion. Cal Asser approached, extending his hand amicably.
Perhaps a brief intellectual discourse might resolve this discombobulation?
Zarok regarded Cal suspiciously. No trickery, scholar barbarian.
None whatsoever,
Cal smiled, eyes glinting. Then he swiftly punched Zarok squarely in the jaw. The tavern erupted into joyful chaos. Several hours, bruises, and many passionately argued apologies later, Cal Asser sat outside by a crackling fire with his newfound companions. Arundel, Borgrim, and two goblins, Zrig and Groz, who had decided Kalassa was far too amusing to leave. You've no doubt muddied my robes irreparably, Arundel complained haughtily, carefully inspecting his garments.
Think of it as rustic authenticity,
Cal suggested, flipping a well-worn tome open.
Now, let us discuss strategy.
Strategy for what, precisely? Borgrim asked cautiously, sipping ale and eyeing Cal with wary amusement.
We must retrieve the genuine chalice of Fenwerthilion,
Cal explained patiently. From the forgot to do his voice.
From the formidable labyrinth beneath...
I cannot remember how to do this. Save my location. Grimlockworth.
Zrimlockworth. 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 Formidable labyrinth beneath Zrimlockworth. Labyrinth beneath Zrimlockworth.
Check that again when I edit. The labyrinth is impenetrable, Arundel sniffed.
Nonsense. Nonsense. Nonsense, Cal retorted. Merely exceedingly complex, convoluted, and confounding to the uninitiated. Fortunately, my credentials are impeccable.
First time we've come across Groz, so let's re-listen.
Hello, I'm a goblin. Hello, I'm a goblin. And your credentials are? And your credentials are?
Groz ventured hesitantly.
Mostly enthusiasm, Cal admitted, and an extensive vocabulary.
Drake's going to be a That's reassuring,
muttered Zrig. Zrig, muttered Zrig.
Splendid, Cal said, already rising. We leave at dawn.
I think my head just hit the ceiling.
We leave at dawn. We leave at dawn.
You can hear it.
We leave at dawn.
Dawn found the companions clustered at the entrance to the labyrinth, a massive gateway carved with intricate and intimidatingly elongated words in a dozen dead languages. Incontrovertibly incomprehensible, Arundel murmured.
Yet linguistically exhilarating,
Cal beamed, eagerly tracing carvings with a finger.
Observe, sesquipedalian, inscriptions, positively rebarbative to casual observers.
Any way to skip to the useful bits? Borgrim suggested. Cal cleared his throat dramatically.
Only those possessed of extraordinary sagacity, indefatigable determination, and an unprecedented level of audacity may enter.
Let's just double check I get the right goblin.
Drake's going to be a very excited. That rules us out. That rules us out.
Zrig whispered nervously. Zrig whispered nervously. Ignoring him, Cal pushed open the immense doors, revealing a tunnel shrouded in unsettling luminescence. Hours passed as the group navigated twists, turns, and occasional attacks by creatures ranging from... twists, turns, and occasional attacks by creatures ranging from belligerent bats to overly verbose spectres, attempting interminable belligerent bats to overly verbose spectres, attempting interminable philosophical dialogues. Absurdity personified, Arundel declared irritably, shaking ectoplasm from his sleeve. Finally, a vast chamber appeared. At its centre, a pedestal holding the unmistakable golden chalice.
Easy as anthropomorphizing pie,
Kal Assa announced cheerily.
I am the guardian of whatever I'm...
Not so fast,
a booming voice echoed ominously. A spectral guardian emerged, eyes glowing menacingly.
To claim the chalice. To claim the chalice. Answer correctly. What does...
Flocky now sin. Flocky now sinny. Flocky now sinny. Hilly-pilly. Hillipillification. Flocky now sinner hillipif. Flocky now silly. Flocky now sinner hillipif. Sinihilipillification. Flocky now sinihilipillification.
What does Flocky now sinihilipillification signify? Flocky now sinihilipillification signify?
Utter nonsense, Borgrim growled.
Close, Kal replied smoothly. But it means to estimate something as worthless. But it means to estimate something as worthless.
The Guardian stared blankly. That word's made me forget what it was like already.
I am the guardian of... Oh, correct. Oh, correct.
He vanished in embarrassment. As Kal triumphantly lifted the chalice, Arundel frowned. Your intellect continually astonishes, Kal, but was that brute force methodology strictly necessary earlier? Kal's smile softened into unexpected sobriety.
Sometimes, my friend, even the most sagacious words fail us. A well-timed punch can convey sincerity more eloquently than all my learned tomes combined.
The silence deepened respectfully before Zrig. The silence deepened respectfully before Zrig quietly spoke.
Can we go home now?
Kal Assa grinned again, lifting the chalice theatrically.
Indeed, back to...
I hate myself for writing this. Gzrimlookworth. Gzrimlookworth.
Gzrimlookworth. Adventure awaits.
As they departed, Groz sighed.
Hello, I'm a goblin. Great, just what I needed. Great, just what I needed. More anthropological debates.
Kal's laughter echoed joyfully through the labyrinth, filled with scholarly barbarism, unabashed enthusiasm, and the comforting absurdity of an adventure thoroughly well told. As Kal Assa and his companions emerged blinking into the midday sun, they were greeted by a cacophony of cheers from the curious villagers of Gzrimlookworth. Gzrimlookworth. Zrimloquith, who had gathered expectantly near the labyrinth's imposing gateway.
"Our champions!"
Ooh, plosive.
"Our champions return triumphant!"
shouted an elderly human with a beard long enough to trip over. He promptly did so, eliciting a sympathetic chuckle from the crowd. Borgrim shook his head. You know, Cal, we dwarves have a proverb. Over-enthusiasm oft leads to unforeseen entanglements.
"Marvellously sagacious," Cal said brightly. "Though in my experience, entanglements often lead to the most instructive lessons."
A child elf scampered forward, tugging excitedly at Arendel's elegant robes.
Master Elf, did ye truly encounter flabbergasting spectres?
Arendelle grimaced slightly, peeling a stubborn strand of ghostly ectoplasm from his silken sleeve. I encountered far more verbosity than malevolence, child. Cal raised the chalice of Fenwerthelian high above his head, the sunlight glinting spectacularly off its jewel-encrusted rim.
"The chalice is returned. Let peace and perhaps a hearty luncheon reign in Zerkrukroda. In Zerkrukroda. Reign in Zrimloquith. Reign in Zrimloquith.
Huzzah! 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 The crowd roared, surging forward to pat shoulders, shake hands, and offer suggestions for future heroic quests. Quests.
Have you ever considered vanquishing the loquacious Hydra of Lake Chalgogagog Man Chalgogagog Chalbanabugga Nudabugga?
Chalgogagog. Manchalgagog.
Of Lake Chalgogagog Man Chalgogagog Chalbanagun Gagamaug. Banagungamaug. Chalgogagog Man Chalgogagog Chalgagog. Chalgogagog Man Chalgogagog.
That bit was an extra syllable.
Man Chalgagog Chalbanagungamaug.
Yeah, that'll do. A hopeful young man asked earnestly, producing a gasp of horror from Arendelle.
"We'll put that under advisement,"
Cal replied diplomatically, swiftly changing the subject.
"Now, friends, let's retire to the Frumious Weasel for victuals and recapitulation of our valiant exploits."
Inside the inn, Zarok the Nefarious sat nursing his bruised jaw and pride in equal measure. He glanced up as Cal and his ragtag companions entered, his eyes narrowing suspiciously. "Come to gloat, barbarian scholar," Zarok growled, attempting, and failing, to appear fearsome.
"Perish the thought," Cal proclaimed magnanimously. "We've come bearing chalices, tales, and possibly excessive verbosity."
"And ale," Borgrim interjected helpfully.
Precisely, Cal agreed, pulling Zarok gently but firmly to join their increasingly crowded table. Today's villainy is tomorrow's reformation, after all. Blah. Blah. Bah. Bah, Zarok muttered, but accepted the ale grudgingly. Zrig, emboldened by his newfound popularity, stood up precariously on his chair and tapped a spoon against his glass.
I propose a toast to Kal Assa, he who confounds villains and companions alike. Hear, hear.
Let's just double-check this again.
Hello, I'm here, here. Here, here.
Cheered Groz, enthusiastically sloshing his beverage over his neighbour. Here, here, repeated Arundel with polite resignation. Kal Assa bowed theatrically, spilling no ale whatsoever, a testament to his refined barbarism.
I graciously accept. Now, perhaps we might arrange for some erudite discourse.
He was interrupted by a frantic courier, breathing heavily and waving a sealed parchment. A message for Kal Assa. A message for Kal Assa. A message for Kal Assa, travelling scholar barbarian.
Present, Cal called cheerfully, snatching the parchment and unfurling it dramatically. His eyes narrowed thoughtfully as he read.
A crisis?
Arundel inquired cautiously. More of an intriguing puzzle, Cal murmured, tapping his chin thoughtfully. It seems the archives at Brackenmill have vanished under circumstances most perplexing.
Vanished? Echoed Borgrim sceptically.
Completely, Cal confirmed gravely, eyes dancing with sudden inspiration. This is precisely the sort of enigmatic imbroglio that calls for our unique blend of brilliance, valour, and slight absurdity.
Does it mention pay? Zarok asked hopefully.
Cal grinned broadly. Immeasurable scholarly prestige.
Wonderful, Zarok muttered dryly.
Then let's be off,
Kal Assa announced grandly, flourishing his cloak and accidentally smacking Zrig in the face.
Adventure and hopefully fewer ridiculously named locations awaits.
As the companions filed out of the tavern, Borgrim leaned towards Arundel conspiratorially. You think you'll ever stop using all them overly long words? Arundel sighed philosophically. One must never underestimate the tenacity of sesquipedalian scholars, my dwarven friend. The tenacity of sesquipedalian scholars, my dwarven friend. Okay, I've made a mistake there. I'm going to leave it in order to make sure I've got a mistake like that to edit later. Borgrim nodded solemnly, pulling his cloak tighter. I feared you might see something like that. Chapter 8. Archives Lost and Found. Brackenmill, usually serene, now buzzed with agitated scholars, perplexed villagers, and at least one deeply unsettled librarian gnome named Friggins. He paced anxiously before the empty spot where the archives of Aldwyn had stood until that morning. Gone? Gone? Friggins moaned dramatically. Every scroll, every tome, every scrap of parchment, vanished?
Astonishing,
Kal Assa declared, rubbing his chin thoughtfully as he strode into the clearing, companions in tow.
One does not simply misplace an entire... One does not simply misplace an entire archive.
It's obviously been purloined, Zarok offered helpfully. A theft is my professional assessment.
Undoubtedly insightful, Cal responded diplomatically, but lacking in subtlety. Let us first interrogate the eyewitnesses.
Borgrim scratched his beard thoughtfully. What eyewitnesses? The archives disappeared overnight.
Friggins raised a shaky hand.
Actually, Trindle saw it all.
A jittery half-orc stepped forward, eyes darting suspiciously. It
was a cloaked figure, wheeled like a cart, murmuring something utterly incomprehensible. Something about epistemological frameworks.
Cal's eyes lit with intrigue. Epistemological frameworks? Fascinating!
Sounds positively soporific,
Arundel muttered. On the contrary, Cal insisted. It suggests a thief with intellectual aspirations.
Zarok sniffed indignantly. My villainy remains unrivaled.
No doubt, Cal agreed gently. Nevertheless, we must track this wheeled rogue at once.
They found peculiar tracks leading from the empty space into the dense whispering woods. They found peculiar tracks leading from the empty space into the dense whispering woods, whose trees were known for murmuring incomprehensible poetry to anyone unfortunate enough to listen.
Courage, friends, Cal encouraged, marching boldly ahead.
Hello, Does anyone actually understand those trees?
Groz asked uneasily. Not yet, Cal replied optimistically, but linguistic breakthroughs happen daily.
Hours later, navigating winding trails and poetic trees, they stumbled into a clearing. At its centre stood the missing archives, perfectly intact, guarded by a mysterious cloaked figure, seated in a rickety wheelchair.
Identify yourself, bibliophilic brigand, Cal demanded grandly.
The figure turned slowly, removing its hood to reveal an ancient face, wrinkled beyond measure. I am simply Keeper Eldwin, the old woman croaked. The archives called out to me, suffering endless neglect from shallow readers and pedantic scholars.
Cal blinked, stunned momentarily into silence. Keeper Eldwin? Your motivations are noble, but your mythology is... Your motivations are noble, but your methodology is ethically problematic.
Simplify, Arundel whispered loudly.
You stole the library, Cal clarified patiently, which is bad.
Keeper Eldwin hung her head remorsefully. I merely sought to preserve knowledge from trivialization.
A commendable aim, Cal conceded gently. Yet knowledge thrives on accessibility, not isolation.
Borgrim nodded sagely. Wisdom unused. Too long a gap. Nodded sagely. Wisdom unused is wisdom wasted. Wrong accent. Wisdom unused is wisdom wasted. Eldwin sighed, defeated. Perhaps my passion obscured my reason.
Happens frequently, Cal said kindly, extending a forgiving hand. Shall we restore these archives and seek a less felonious method of advocacy?
Eldwin nodded humbly, accepting Cal's hand. Your perspicacity humbles me, Scholar Barbarian. The journey back to Brackenmill was jovial, filled with spirited debate on ethics, accessibility, and at least one enthusiastic attempt by Cal to compose. Weird spacing. Accessibility and at least one enthusiastic attempt by Cal to compose poetry with the trees. Upon their triumphant return, Friggins nearly fainted with relief.
"Thank Aldwin. Order is restored?"
"Indeed," Cal smiled warmly. "Yet remember, the true guardians of knowledge are not the keepers, but the sharers."
"Profound," Zarok admitted grudgingly.
"Exceptionally so. Exceptionally so. Exceptionally so," Arundel agreed. "Perhaps we might even persuade Cal to occasionally adopt brevity."
Let us not become overly ambitious, Borgrim chuckled softly. After all, the fellow thrives on verbosity. Cal grinned, raising his voice dramatically to address the assembled crowd.
"Friends, let this event remind us, the pursuit of wisdom demands openness, humility, and above all, an unwavering willingness to embrace a bit of absurdity."
"Hear, hear! Hear, hear!
Hear, hear!"
Hear, hear! Hear, hear!"
cheered the villagers, echoed wholeheartedly by Cal's companions. Cal Asser bowed extravagantly, feeling deeply satisfied by yet another thoroughly discombobulated, yet enlightening adventure. Back inside the restored archives of Aldwin, Friggins bustled about, gently restoring books to their rightful shelves, pausing only occasionally to cast anxious glances at Keeper Aldwin.
"I trust," Cal Asser remarked gently, noting Friggins's unease, "that our friend Eldwin has seen the proverbial error of her bibliographic ways."
That is the wrong gender noted there, but okay.
"Quite so," Eldwin replied contritely, adjusting her spectacles. "Though I do reserve the right to grumble quietly about misused semicolons."
"An essential privilege,"
Cal agreed solemnly. Arundel peered curiously at a particularly hefty tome titled The Encyclopedic Compendium of Preposterously Verbose Terminology. Did anyone miss this book while it was gone? Did anyone miss this book while it was gone? Did anyone miss this book while it was gone? Unfortunately, yes, Friggins sighed deeply. Professor Tumbledown insists it's pivotal for his research on superfluous erudition. We've got the wrong gender again. It's pivotal for his research. Professor Tumbledown insists it's pivotal for her research on superfluous erudition. Indeed. Indeed, boomed Professor Tumbledown herself, appearing at the doorway. Cal Asser, I cannot thank you sufficiently for returning it. Without this indispensable tome, my work would remain tragically incomplete.
Glad to have facilitated your sesquipedalian endeavours,
Cal replied with utmost seriousness. Borgrim chuckled, nudging Zarok lightly. Borgrim chuckled, nudging Zarok lightly. And here I thought it was just Cal he liked. To use big words. Never underestimate the contagion of scholarly pretension, Zarok muttered dryly. As fascinating as semantics are, Arundel interjected diplomatically, perhaps we might discuss our next step. Cal nodded, considering carefully.
We have restored both Chalice and Archives, but mysteries remain unresolved. Namely, who is manipulating such peculiar occurrences?
Villainy again? Zarok perked up.
Of the subtle variety, Cal clarified. Someone is orchestrating disruptions with exceptional precision.
Precisely,
came a smooth voice from the shadows. Into the lamplight stepped a tall, slender elf with piercing violet eyes and robes embroidered with impossibly intricate symbols.
Allow me to introduce myself. Phalar Silverbow, scholar extraordinaire and collector of peculiar phenomena.
And orchestrator of disruptions?
Cal asked politely. Phalar smiled mysteriously.
A facilitator of chaos, perhaps. I observe outcomes.
And your goal? Arundel challenged sharply. Oh dear, I've used the same colour twice.
Purely academic.
Phalar shrugged elegantly.
You see, I specialize in analyzing reactions to anomalies, like yourselves.
That's rather sinister, Borgrim noted bluntly.
Merely unconventional,
Phalar corrected smoothly.
And enlightening. You, Cal Assa, have proven fascinating. Your barbarism tempered by intellect, your absurdity balanced by sincerity.
Cal narrowed his eyes thoughtfully.
Yet your methodology flirts dangerously close to villainy.
Observational villainy,
Phalar clarified, smiling faintly.
The noblest form.
Highly debatable, Cal countered. Yet I confess curiosity. What have you learned?
Phalar's expression turned serious, a rare sincerity flickering briefly in their violet eyes.
That the world requires those who combine absurdity with clarity, those unafraid to embrace contradictions, much like yourself.
Cal inclined his head respectfully.
Then perhaps, despite your dubious ethics, you serve a purpose.
Phalar bowed theatrically.
Indeed. And rest assured, Cal Assa, our paths will cross again.
With that, the elf disappeared as swiftly as they'd appeared, leaving behind only murmured confusion.
That,
Zarok remarked dryly, was unnecessarily dramatic.
Indeed,
Cal agreed cheerfully, clapping Zarok's shoulder.
But then again, so have we.
Borgrim snorted. No arguing with that logic.
Then onward, Cal Assa declared brightly. For the world, evidently, has ample need for our particular brand of wisdom and absurdity.
And as they stepped back into the sunlight, prepared to embrace whatever ridiculousness the future might bring, even Arundel found himself smiling, ever so slightly. The companions made their way back to the Frumious Weasel, where the innkeeper greeted them warmly, sliding fresh mugs of ale across the counter with practiced ease. You've returned. That makes no sense. He's been with them. Right, so I would normally note this as something to go and check with the publisher/author. I'm assuming the innkeeper is meant to be saying this. Or it's meant to say, we've returned.
You've returned?
For now, I'm going to change it to we've. I'm going to check.
We've returned,
Borgrim observed dryly, raising his mug towards Cal Assa.
Once more triumphant, verbose, and excessively cheerful.
Occupational hazards,
Cal replied good-naturedly, sipping thoughtfully.
Although our mysterious Phalar leaves us with intriguing conundrums.
You trust him?
Zarok asked suspiciously.
Trust is perhaps excessive. Cal admitted, but curiosity demands we keep an eye open.
Arundel frowned gently, swirling his delicate goblet.
He hinted at further interventions. We must remain vigilant.
Zrig groaned theatrically.
Why can't we simply retire quietly, enjoy ale, and discuss nonsensical tavern debates?
Cal smiled warmly. Because adventure, dear Zrig, never truly rests.
Neither does trouble,
Groz added somewhat resignedly. Cal chuckled gently, his gaze softening into thoughtful seriousness. Yet remember, friends, trouble is merely opportunity in disguise. Every crisis reveals hidden strengths.
Even loquacious hydras?
Zrig asked skeptically. Especially those, Cal nodded solemnly, for they teach patience. Borgrim chortled loudly, slapping the table with enthusiasm. Patience. Patience and the necessity of earplugs. Laughter filled the tavern, a warm, comforting sound echoing off the wooden beams. Zarok grumbled under his breath, yet even his eyes twinkled with reluctant amusement. Master Scholar Barbarian? Friggins ventured quietly from the next table. Before you inevitably embark again, might you inscribe a memoir of your adventures? Future scholars would surely benefit. Cal's eyes sparkled with sudden inspiration. Marvellous idea, Friggins! A work encompassing valour, absurdity, and philosophical musings on the nature of excessive verbosity. Heaven forbid, Arundel murmured, though his tone was fond. Cal raised his mug dramatically. To adventures past, present, and future, may our bravery be unquestioned, our wisdom expansive, and our sentences perpetually multisyllabic. A cheer arose from around the inn, spilling into the village streets, carried by laughter and merriment. Cal Asser grinned broadly, already envisioning their next escapade, confident that together they would meet whatever absurdity the universe threw their way.